Listen, I need to tell you something, and I need you to stay with me here because this took me 75 years to figure out. And I promise you, whether you go to church every Sunday or you haven't prayed since you were a kid, this is going to matter to you. So just give me a few minutes. Don't skip ahead. My name is Harold. I'm 75 years old, and for most of my life, I thought I had religion all figured out. Turns out I didn't know a damn thing. I grew up in a small town in Tennessee where there were more churches than stoplights. My family was Baptist, the old school kind, where you dressed up on Sundays and hell was a real place that people you knew were probably going to. I was in church 3 times a week, memorizing Bible verses, singing hymns, learning all the right answers to all the big questions. And back then it felt good. It felt safe. Everything made sense because someone had already figured it all out for me. But here's the thing nobody tells you when you're young. Life doesn't care about your neat little answers. It comes at you with experiences that blow those answers apart. And you either rebuild something real or you spend the rest of your life pretending everything's fine. When I was 19, I got drafted and sent to Vietnam. I'd never been further from home than Nashville, and suddenly I'm in a jungle halfway around the world, carrying a rifle and watching boys my age die in ways I'm not going to describe to you. But there's one moment I can't forget. We were in a village, and there was this old woman, had to be 80 years old, and she was praying. I don't know what religion, I don't know what she was saying, but I recognized something in her face. It was the same expression my grandmother had when she prayed. The same desperation, the same hope, the same reaching out for something bigger than herself. And I remember standing there thinking, she's praying to a different God than me, but it's the same thing, the same human need. And if my God is the only real one, what happens to her? She never had a chance to hear about Jesus. She was born here, raised here, taught something completely different. Is she going to hell for that? And if the answer is yes, then what kind of God are we talking about? That question messed me up for years. I came home, did what I was supposed to do, married a wonderful woman named Marie, had 3 kids, got a job at the phone company, showed up at church every Sunday. But inside, I was wrestling with things I couldn't talk about because doubt wasn't allowed. You were supposed to just have faith, and if you had questions, well, that meant you weren't praying hard enough. So I kept quiet. I taught Sunday school. I served on committees. I smiled and nodded and said all the right things. And the whole time I felt like a fraud because I didn't believe with the certainty everyone else seemed to have. The thing that broke me open happened when I was 58. My daughter Emily came home from college and told us she didn't believe in God anymore. She said she'd been studying different religions and philosophy, and she'd decided it was all just stories people told themselves to feel better about dying. My wife cried for weeks. My son stopped talking to her. Our church friends whispered about where we went wrong as parents. And me, I was angry. But not at Emily. I was angry at myself because she had the courage to be honest about her doubts. And I'd been hiding mine for 40 years. That's when I started really digging. I read books I'd been afraid to read. I talked to people from other faiths. Really talked to them, not trying to convert them, just trying to understand. I met a Muslim man named Ahmed at the hardware store where I was buying lumber. We got to talking, and he invited me to his mosque. I went, and you know what I found? People praying with the same sincerity I'd seen in my own church. People asking the same questions about meaning and purpose and what happens when we die. Different words, different rituals, but the same human hunger for connection to something greater. I started reading about Buddhism, Hinduism, Judaism. All these traditions I'd been taught were wrong. And here's what shocked me. They all had profound wisdom in them. They all had insights about how to live a good life, how to deal with suffering, how to find peace. The Buddhist teachings about letting go of attachment, that helped me more than anything I'd learned in 40 years of church. The Jewish concept of tikkun olam, repairing the world, that resonated with me deeper than any sermon about getting into heaven. And I realized something that changed everything. Every religion is humans trying to explain a mystery that's too big for words. We're all looking at the same mountain, just from different sides. Some of us call it God, some call it Allah, some call it Brahman, some call it the Tao, some don't call it anything at all. But we're all responding to the same mystery, the same wonder at existence, the same question of why there's something instead of nothing. Now, does that mean all religions are exactly the same? No. The differences matter. They give us different tools, different practices, different ways of understanding. But here's what I've learned. Every religion at its best points toward the same basic truths. Be kind. Help people who are suffering. Don't be cruel. Be humble. Recognize that you don't have all the answers. Love is more important than being right. And every religion at its worst gets used as a weapon. I've seen Christians justify slavery and segregation with Bible verses. I've seen people blow themselves up in the name of Allah. I've seen Buddhists commit genocide in Myanmar. I've seen Hindus and Muslims slaughter each other in India. Every tradition can be twisted to justify hatred when people are afraid and looking for someone to blame. The problem isn't religion. The problem is human fear. When we're scared, we build walls. We create us versus them. We convince ourselves that we have the truth and everyone else is wrong, and that makes it okay to hurt them or exclude them or look down on them. And that happens with religion, but it also happens with politics, nationalism, any ideology that promises certainty in an uncertain world. So what do I actually believe now, after 75 years? I believe the mystery is real. I believe there's something more to existence than just atoms and molecules, though I can't prove it and I don't need to. I believe love is the closest thing we have to what God is. I believe Jesus was right about loving your enemies and caring for the poor. I believe the Buddha was right about suffering and compassion. I believe Muhammad was right about surrender and devotion. I believe we're all stumbling around in the dark, trying to make sense of this strange, beautiful, terrifying experience of being alive. I also believe that hell isn't a place you go when you die. Hell is what we create here when we choose hatred over love, when we choose certainty over curiosity, when we choose judgment over compassion. And heaven isn't some future reward. Heaven is what happens when we choose differently, when we see the divine in each other, when we recognize that we're all connected. My wife Marie died 8 months ago. We were married for 53 years. And in those last few weeks when she was in hospice, she asked me if I thought we'd see each other again. And I told her the truth. I said, I don't know. I hope so. I can't imagine a universe that would create love like ours just to snuff it out completely. But I don't know. And I'm okay not knowing. What I do know is that our love was real. The life we built together mattered. The kindness we tried to show, the people we tried to help, the small ways we tried to make the world a little bit better, that counted for something. And if there's any justice in the universe, that can't just disappear. I still pray sometimes, but it doesn't look like it used to. I don't ask God for things or try to negotiate. I mostly just sit quietly and feel grateful. Grateful for another day, for the people I love, for the mystery of it all. Is anyone listening? I genuinely don't know. But something happens in that silence that makes me a better person, and that's enough. Here's what I want you to hear. Your doubts are not a problem. Your questions are not a sign that something's wrong with you. If the religion you grew up with doesn't fit anymore, that's okay. You're allowed to outgrow things. You're allowed to search for something that feels more true, more honest, more real. But don't give up on the big questions just because somebody gave you bad answers. Don't throw out the search for meaning just because organized religion let you down. That hunger you feel for something more, that's not weakness. That's the most human thing about you. You don't have to believe what I believe. You don't have to go to church or mosque or temple. You don't have to call it God or pray or do any of the things I do. But stay curious. Stay humble. Treat people with kindness, especially people who believe completely different things than you. Because in the end, that's what matters. Not what you believe, but how you treat people because of what you believe. I'm 75 years old. I've spent my whole life wrestling with these questions, and I'm still figuring it out. And honestly, I think that's how it's supposed to be. The mystery is supposed to stay mysterious. We're supposed to wonder, to search, to question, to grow. That's what makes us human. So keep searching, keep asking, keep being kind, and don't let anyone tell you they have all the answers, because nobody does. We're all just doing our best with this beautiful, confusing, miraculous thing called life.